The courtroom was eerily quiet. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, dust particles dancing in the air as if time itself was holding its breath. Then came a voice, firm yet trembling with emotion, echoing through the hall. "Ma'am, I can make your daughter walk again." Every head turned toward the man who spoke. His voice cracked, but his eyes burned with conviction. He stood tall, dressed in a faded army jacket, his hands trembling slightly as if the memories of battle still haunted him. The judge, sitting on the high wooden bench, turned slowly and froze because the man standing before her wasn't just a stranger. He was someone she thought she'd never see again. If you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps us share stories that remind the world that even the smallest acts of compassion can change a life forever. The man's name was Ethan Cole, a decorated Army medic who had seen more pain and loss than most could imagine. After returning from service overseas, he found himself broken, physically, emotionally, and financially. His wife, unable to handle the nightmares and the quiet emptiness that followed him home, left with their young son, Owen, leaving Ethan to piece together the shards of a life that no longer felt like his own. Every night, he worked double shifts at a rehabilitation center, using his medical knowledge to help others regain mobility, even as he limped from an old injury himself. Ethan had once believed he'd lost his purpose. That was until he met a little girl named Hannah Avery, a bright 7-year-old who had lost the ability to walk after a devastating car accident. Her mother, Judge Clara Avery, was known across the city as a woman of strength, strict, composed, and fair, but behind her sharp gavel and steely eyes lay a mother's heartbreak. No specialist, no therapy, no surgery had worked. Hannah's legs had given up, and so had Clara's hope. Ethan met them by chance one morning when he was volunteering at a local community center. He saw Hannah sitting in her wheelchair by the window, sketching a little sun rising over a field of flowers. She smiled when he passed by, and something in that simple gesture cracked open a piece of his heart that had long been sealed shut. Over the next few weeks, he began spending time with her, teaching her small exercises, encouraging her to believe that her body could remember what her spirit had never forgotten. How to stand, how to take a step, how to live freely again. Hannah adored him. She called him Mr. Ethan the Brave. He brought her little handmade gadgets that helped with muscle stimulation, crafted from spare parts he found at the center. Every day, he worked with her quietly, patiently, never promising miracles but always reminding her, "We just have to keep trying." When Judge Clara discovered who had been helping her daughter, she was furious. Ethan was not officially part of Hannah's medical team. She confronted him in the hospital courtyard, her voice trembling with both authority and fear. "You had no right," she told him. "My daughter has been through enough false hope." Ethan stood there, his eyes weary yet kind. "Ma'am," he said softly, "hope isn't false if it keeps her fighting." His words lingered in the air long after he left. Clara didn't know then that this man, the same man she now faced in her courtroom months later, would soon change her life forever. It all began when tragedy struck again. One rainy afternoon, Ethan was driving Owen home when a reckless driver sped through a red light. His car spun, crashing against a pole. Owen suffered minor injuries, but the other driver, a wealthy businessman, accused Ethan of causing the accident. Without a lawyer, without resources, Ethan found himself dragged into court, facing the very woman whose child he had once tried to help. When Judge Clara Avery entered the courtroom that morning and saw Ethan standing there, she froze. The same man who had once lifted her daughter's spirit was now accused of reckless endangerment. Ethan's eyes met hers for a brief moment and then dropped to the floor. He didn't speak much. He didn't defend himself aggressively. He simply said, "Your Honor, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just trying to get my son home safe." As the hearing progressed, Clara tried to remain professional, but her heart was torn. The evidence was murky: two conflicting witness statements, unclear dashcam footage, and a man too humble to argue for himself. What broke her, though, wasn't the evidence, it was Owen. When the young boy took the stand, he looked at his father, then at the judge, and said softly, "Please don't take my dad away. He's all I have." Silence filled the courtroom. Clara's hands trembled beneath the bench. Her own daughter had often said something similar when her husband passed away years ago. She dismissed the court for a recess, retreating to her chambers, where she tried to compose herself. But her past, her guilt, and her gratitude for what Ethan had once done collided inside her heart. The next morning, Clara went to the hospital before court resumed. She found Hannah in the therapy room, standing, not perfectly, not for long, but standing with the help of braces and a wide smile. "Mister, Ethan told me I could do it," Hannah said proudly. Clara's breath caught in her throat. The doctors hadn't expected this progress. But somehow Ethan's belief, his unconventional methods, and his unwavering kindness had sparked something in her little girl. That day, when Clara returned to court, she carried that image in her heart. Ethan standing quietly, his hands folded, his son clutching his sleeve. The very man she was supposed to judge was the reason her daughter was walking again. She called for silence, then looked straight into Ethan's eyes and said the words that shocked everyone present. "Mr. Cole," she began, her voice soft but firm, "before we proceed, I need to ask, how did you do it? How did you make her walk again?" The room fell still. Reporters leaned forward. Ethan hesitated, then spoke slowly, his voice breaking. "Ma'am," he said, "I didn't make her walk again. She did. I just reminded her that she could." Those words broke something inside Clara. For a long moment, the judge was no longer a judge, but a mother who remembered nights spent crying beside her daughter's bed, praying for a miracle, and that miracle had been standing before her all along. When the verdict was finally delivered, the courtroom expected a harsh outcome. But instead, Clara spoke words that brought tears to more than a few eyes. "This court recognizes that sometimes the measure of a person's worth cannot be found in the evidence alone, but in the lives they've touched." She looked at Ethan directly. Case dismissed. Ethan could hardly breathe. He turned to Owen, kneeling beside him as the boy hugged him tightly. Across the room, Clara stood frozen, her own tears falling freely. It was over, but something far deeper had begun. In the weeks that followed, Clara invited Ethan to continue helping with Hannah's recovery, this time officially and with full support. Every day, he came to the Avery home, guiding Hannah through therapy sessions filled with laughter and patience. Slowly, Hannah began taking her first independent steps, each one a victory not just for her, but for the broken hearts that had found healing in one another's company. Clara began seeing Ethan not as the soldier haunted by war, but as a man who carried hope like a torch through darkness. And Ethan began to rediscover the family he had thought he'd lost forever. Through small, quiet moments, shared meals, gentle encouragement, and late-night talks about faith and fear, they built something fragile yet beautiful: trust. Months later, Hannah walked across her school stage for the first time, wearing a yellow dress, her braces gleaming in the light. Ethan stood beside Clara in the audience, tears streaming down both their faces as the little girl turned, waved, and shouted, "I did it, Mr. Ethan." The crowd erupted in applause, but it was Clara who reached out, taking Ethan's hand silently in hers. That day, under the bright sky outside the school, Clara turned to him and said softly, "You didn't just help my daughter walk again. You helped me believe again." Ethan smiled, his eyes wet but shining. "Sometimes," he said, We all just need someone to remind us that we can still stand. And as the sun fell over the horizon, 3 souls, each once broken in their own way, walked together towards something that felt like healing, like peace, like a second chance. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Every act of kindness begins with a story worth remembering, and your engagement helps keep these stories alive for others to feel inspired. Special request: comment below with the words, "I believe in second chances." If you felt moved by Ethan's story, your comment might just inspire someone else who's fighting their own silent battle today.